Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
That makes me Brian Michael. And before we begin, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell notification so every time I post an episode, it'll let you know. And Godzilla knocks down another building. We've got an exciting show for you today. Actually, we have a Rocketman, we have a Godzilla monster, we have a buried treasure, a fresh pick, as well as a streaming six. So we have an action-packed episode here for you. Starting off with Rocketman, which is a clip you saw at the top of the show. This is a biography of Elton John, and it's one of those wishful movies. Even though I can barely recommend this film, I just kept wishing it did this, and gosh, I wish it did that, and I wish it kind of did this here and there. It's interesting when you do a film of an artist that is actually still alive and we know very well today and have some ownership, and they're using his music to explain his story, especially with the words that he didn't write. So I kind of had a little problem with that a little bit. And then we get into the musicals, which they turn into musicals, which is fine, and I like the songs. The first couple of them, the camera is...
You like the songs? It's Elton John's hit songs. Of course you like them.
They zoomed in so far. You know how I always like to see people's feet, but it felt like I could see everyone's nose hairs. But then from there on, of course, we it's a biography, so we see him as a child, and oh look, mom and dad are mean, or one of them is mean, and some of them is horrible. One abandons them, and they become famous, and then it's hard being famous, and you use drugs, and then oh, your music starts to suffer. Oh, you have a comeback. We've seen it with Ray. We've seen this over and over and over again.
And I would say that the story itself is a bit cliche, although I think the first half is much stronger. I think the...
Oh, really?
I think the first half's stronger before he gets into the drugs, because I actually thought the family stuff was really interesting, because it is true that a lot of artists come from troubled backgrounds or have issues with their parents. And I thought the stuff with his dad was really interesting. The fact that his dad was a music aficionado who would not let him touch his records or get near his music, and that had such a psychological impact on him. And the fact that he was so talented at a young age and was not necessarily talented at reading music, but was very talented at listening and being able to just play anything he heard, which, you know, having a great ear is definitely a skill. So I like that they put those kind of details in, because it seems a lot of times with musical biopics, it's just like, hey, there's like one scene, and then all of a sudden it's like, and they're famous and they're a genius. And I like they showed a lot more of that with him. They showed his musical progression as a child.
Yeah,
but the film, I have to say one thing about your issue with the lyrics is two things. One, this is played like a musical, like a fantasy. They even called it a rock and roll fantasy. So there's a lot of stuff in here that is not meant to be taken literally. If you looked at the movie, it would seem that Elton and Bernie had written all of his hit songs in like their first month, because they show them. And that's obviously not the way it actually happened. And he was not singing a certain song that I can't say the name of on this show, but that opens the movie when he was 10 years old or whatever. So it's a fantasy. So, I mean, to me, it worked partially because they have different characters also singing some of the songs. So it's not just the...
Yeah,
but that's... It's not supposed to be from his perspective all the time. It's using his songs to tell a musical story.
So you really like having the young... There's nothing I enjoy more than a young child singing pop music. Ugh.
It wasn't enough to bother me.
It was enough. And
I liked it. I liked the way they interwove those songs. At some point, Bernie even sings one of the songs. And so they're all Elton John songs that we're familiar with, but there's different characters singing them.
So then, you know, it's a rated R film. They certainly don't, because of the drug use, and they don't shy away from his homosexuality, which I really appreciated, because the Queen biopic, the Bohemian Rhapsody, certainly did that. But the thing, Jamie Bell comes in, and he's playing Bernie Taupin, and they have fantastic chemistry with Taron Egerton, who I'm a big fan of. I like him in the right roles. He's very good as Elton John, and they have great chemistry. And I thought, oh, let's make this movie. I want to see them. You know, they're always written in two different rooms.
The scenes with the two of them
are
the best
really
good,
together. And I wish they would have concentrated more on that, because whenever they do movies on people who are creative, like Frida had done, you see the inspirations and how it intertwined into her music and to her art, and how that came about and how she was inspired. They never show that with these things. It's just all of a sudden he's at the piano and just goes blink, blink, blink. Oh, here's the song. And even if that's really what happened, which might be somewhat true, but I kind of like to have seen just some of the thought progress, or some of the trial and error, and some of that, which would have been interesting. And then they have a big, you know, he goes into his drug use and blames people for it, and has a weird falling out with the Bernie Taupin character, because you bailed on me in a party when they first went to LA, which is a silly, stupid reason.
Well, I think that actually shows kind of how narcissistic and shallow the Elton John character was. I mean, it's a warts and all in some ways, you know, that he was such an introvert, and he did so poorly with people that just being left alone at a party, you know, kind of like scarred him in this horrible way. So yeah, it seems kind of crazy, but I do agree with you that I thought their friendship was one of the best parts of the movie.
Really good, yeah.
And and both really good actors, but both the way they work together. I almost felt like their story was the love story in the movie, and in a non-romantic fashion. But
and they do touch on that, which I like too.
And they do, yeah. And Bernie even says at one point, "I love you no matter what," even though you're being a jerk right now. And I think that was really, to me, I would have liked to almost seen the movie wrap up with that part of the relationship. And they give you a little coda at the end. But,
well, yeah, and then the coda is the big problem I have too. Is here's this whole story. You got to see him go through the rehab because that's the most interesting part of his life, I guess. I don't know. But then they have it, oh yeah, wait, and then we're ending in the movie. Oh, I heard it in the credits here. He found love and everything, lived happily ever after. Look, they adopted children. Bye. And it was like, well, is that going to be the sequel? I mean, could we have seen more of that? That'd have been nice. They did the same thing in Bohemian Rhapsody, where it was like, oh, you'll never find love. You'll always be alone. And at the end, they're like, oh, well, yeah, he did find another guy. So, all right, bye. I just hate that.
Well, and of course, his story is much more tragic than Elton's. And I did, and of course, Elton John's story is not tragic ultimately. We know he's still alive and kicking and doing well. I will say one thing about Taron Egerton, who plays Elton John. I have not liked him in most movies I've seen him in, including the Kingsman movies. And I actually thought he was very good in this. I thought he was fully committed to the role. I thought his singing was good. It's not exactly Elton John, but you can really feel the performance when he's singing. And I thought it was much, much better. And I know there's the Rami Malek fans out there, but I did not think he was very good as Freddie Mercury. I was feeling, I could tell he was performing the whole time. And this I felt was 110% commitment. Like Taron just was like fully going for it.
It's a 3-star film for me.
3.5.
3.5. Whoa. Yes. So we're going to move on to the next movie. Oh man, I drag Angela sometimes to movies. This is awesome. It's Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And the plot is, there's monsters and Godzilla's got to be the king. Because of, that's really what happens. Other titans are awoken and here comes Godzilla to put the smack down. That's pretty much what it is. And when you're looking at a big, huge Hollywood budget with all the special effects, there's going to be some fight scenes in the snow or there's going to be fight scenes in the rain or in the dark. That's going to happen. But you're looking forward to these fight scenes. And I got to tell you, when the fight scenes happen in this movie, they're absolutely fantastic.
What?
And they make up for about 20 minutes of the movie, maybe tops, but it's about a 2.5-hour film, and the rest of it's filled with either you're going to get an Altman cast with something like this, or you're going to get a Love Boat cast, because it's going to be a whole bunch of people thrown in. Luckily, that's an Altman cast, because they're fine actors, but they're given terrible things to do, and all they do is they look up, oh, Godzilla's big. Well, yeah, no kidding. Wow. Way to waste so many great actors.
Oh, I know.
Kyle
I was
Chandler,
writing
Vera
it down.
Farmiga.
Sally Hawkins.
Sally Hawkins. Oh, it's such a great cast. Such a great cast.
They have nothing
Zero,
to do.
Zero. Nothing. They have
the one
absolutely
Chinese
nothing.
actress that we love.
Zhang Yimou.
Yeah, she's just Ken Watanabe, who's one of Japan's greatest acting treasures, and he has nothing to do other than occasionally go, Godzilla, or whatever. There's just nothing for him to do in this movie. And I don't even know if I necessarily agree with you on the fight sequences. There's a couple
I really
that are
liked
good,
them.
but I think a lot of them, when they're shot from far away, the monsters look cool. But when they got close up, I was like, I can't tell what's going on and who's doing what and what. I couldn't follow it. When he did the close-ups, it just seemed very poorly choreographed. But like you said, this was way too long. Come on, it's Godzilla.
It was so
80,
long.
90 minutes. Cut it down. That's all you're waiting for. Everyone that was in the theater is like, okay, when is Godzilla going to fight? When is the action going to happen? The humans are given nothing to do in the movie. They have this whole
they got a lot of screen time.
A global warming climate change plot.
So a lot of them, when I say they're staring up at Godzilla, I shouldn't say that. They're staring at a monitor. Oh, look. One of them literally is outside where Godzilla is, runs inside, then turns and looks at the monitor, and they all go, oh, and stare at the monitor. I'm like, why are you looking at them? He's right out. Can't you have a window? What's going on here?
Oh, they're all looking at cameras. Monitoring him at the facility.
They're looking at They're looking at the cameras. The camera lens. They're looking at notepads.
Whoever wrote
they're
this
looking
script,
at screens.
It was really bad. I actually had the thought maybe what's his name? Wolfgang. What's the guy
Peterson.
that does it? Yeah, someone could punch up the script a little even make it funny or something, because these actors have nothing to do. Kyle Chandler's just doing his brave dad that saves the day face for 2 hours straight.
So this is the director who did Krampus, a movie I do want to see, and Trick or Treat, a movie I did enjoy. 2 really scary films. I believe Krampus was a horror film, and there wasn't anything really scary in this one. It was just kind of like
there was one jump.
Yeah, there
was.
Yes,
the lady next to me really jumped, but I just sort of did that a little. One.
In the first one, the last Godzilla film that they did, and and they hired a cool director who made monsters, but there wasn't enough of the Godzilla. You want to see more Godzilla. This one we get to see a little more Godzilla, but then they just made the movie so much longer, and you just have to wait. Again, I keep saying this now. I look forward to the YouTube clip where someone just puts all the monster stuff, and I will sit and watch that clip because I like the monster action. It was great, but just showing that 20 minutes of that, and then just doing it.
Are not interesting, and that's not the actor's fault because these are all great actors. Vera Farmiga, I have to ask you something. Did it make any sense whatsoever, and I don't care that I'm giving away a plot point, did it make any sense whatsoever that her response to Godzilla supposedly killing her son at the beginning of the movie, this happens, so I'm not giving anything away, is to go out and unleash all the monsters?
Yeah, because that's supposed to be the balance of, that makes
that
sense.
wouldn't make no sense. No parent would do that. Like, this monster killed my son, let's unleash all of them. I was like...
I wanted her to twirl a mustache.
But it made no sense. It made no sense.
Yeah.
Her character, and then by the end she's like, oh, I've made a mistake. They're killing people. I'm like your son at the beginning, what are you talking about? Okay, sorry. This movie was ridiculous. I'm giving it 1.5 stars.
I'm giving it 2 because I liked when the two monsters fight.
Okay. For 2 stars for two
monsters. 2 stars for each of the monsters.
So our next segment is our Buried Treasures segment. And these are films that are hard to find but on critically acclaimed or critics lists. So some of these you have to find in the library. Sometimes you can find them online. Sometimes you can find them at the library.
Sometimes you know somebody that knows someone that can make it happen.
Yeah, sometimes you got to go into the movie market. So this one is Going Down the Road from 1970, and it's about 2 men who leave their small town in Canada for the big bright lights of Toronto, where they struggle with hardships. And this film is actually pretty famous for being like one of Canada's greatest films, supposedly, which I feel bad for Canada on this. Donald Shebib, I might be butchering his name, Shebib, directed it. So here's my issue with this movie. I'm going to start off with my issue.
Oh, I know your issues in the movie, but it's dated, Angela. It's a dated film.
1970, though. We're starting with the height of feminism here.
1970 Canada.
I'm still saying, this film is so sexist. And the thing is, it has some really interesting things to say about class. That's really interesting, but it's totally overshadowed. But what jerks these guys are, the 2 main characters, Peter and Joe, it's not just that they're sexist pigs, although that's bad enough. They're also lazy, and they drink constantly, and then they get to Canada, they get jobs, or they get to Toronto, they get jobs right away, by the way. It doesn't take very long.
Didn't turn out the way they wanted it to, but they were able to rebound.
Yeah, they thought they were going to become doctors and lawyers and ad salesmen, and then they're told, oh, well, you don't even have a high
degree.
School. You don't have any sort of degree.
Sure.
So they get a job at a factory.
They get a temporary job.
Yeah, but they are getting a paycheck, and then one of them's like, I don't feel like going to that job anymore. I'm going to sit at home and drink beer. And I'm like... I'm sorry, I've had a hard time. I know you don't always have to like the protagonists, but when they're the only 2 people on the screen, and then they're completely sexist, they just treat the women in their lives like garbage.
Oh, yeah.
So it really made it hard for me. I had a really hard time with this movie, in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah, but I really, I found some of the plight interesting because one of them was trying it. You got to come to work. You're going to get fired.
Yeah,
no, I don't want to do that. And then later when he finds somebody and they move in together and he's like, oh, I got these payments I can make on these things. It's only $15 a month for everything. And how long are you going to do it? Oh, for about, 7 and 10 years.
That's how folks get kind of swindled into the American dream, in this case, the Canadian dream of, oh, we're going to have all this nice furniture in our house.
Colored television.
On layaway or on loan.
Yeah. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So, it is kind of forgotten. It's from 1970, way long ago. But I did enjoy that because it was a little bit of a... Yes, it was. What? And but I did like seeing that what they were kind of going through. No, I didn't appreciate the way they were doing things, but I did appreciate that snapshot of that time. And there was a time when you didn't have to have a high school education to get a job, to be able to progress. I mean, that is part of the American dream, that you'd be able to go in there, work hard, roll up your sleeves, and be able to do things.
Christmas is Canada.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. So I liked that aspect, and I thought that was very interesting, and I did enjoy it. I mean, we did kind of laugh a few times while we were doing it because we were watching it because it was dated, but I did appreciate the film, and I could see why. Yeah, this is an independent film. It's really kind of showing Canadians not in the best of light. But I mean, how many Canadian films can you name? And there you go.
There's a few, but they're all French Canadian, the classics. The French Canadian classics. So okay, well, I can't recommend it. It's 3 stars for you.
It's 3 stars for me. Okay. But yeah, you're gonna have to really dig for this one.
It's
somewhere
really hard
in a library.
To find, but it was on our Siskel and Ebert list. We crossed it off. Out. Yes. So it was on Ebert's top 10 of that year. So he apparently didn't mind the.
When you're in the 70s, you didn't mind the 70s stuff.
Okay.
I guess.
I don't know. I think if you were a woman, you would take issue with the way they treated women.
Roger Ebert. No, that was a guy. I'm pretty sure.
So our next segment is our fresh picks. These are my fresh picks. These are new movies that have come out within the last year that we missed somehow in the theater, or maybe they didn't come to the theater in Salem. In this case, this one did, and we missed reviewing it the first time around, so we're going to review it now because it's very, very high on Rotten Tomatoes, lots of critics lists so far for this year. Apollo 11, it's a documentary. It's a fly-on-the-wall look at the mission to land men on the moon. And, of course, we feel like we've seen this story a million times before. In fact, we just saw
really have.
We really have. There was just a movie last year with Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong. So we have seen this movie a lot before. What this movie does a little bit differently, it's a documentary without any talking heads or newsreel footage. It is literally fly on the wall. They compiled all this real footage, a lot of it that was just left in dustbin, 65 millimeter footage of the spaceflight that NASA took.
Fantastic.
That's amazing,
looking.
yes. And that's really, really nice looking. It was one it really would have been a great one to see on the big screen. It did show here in Salem at Salem Cinema. But it tells the story in the present tense too, almost like it's on the screen right there, and like it just starts like it's happening now.
It rolls out as things are happening.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because, as a film snob, and if you're watching or you're learning, there's a movie called The Right Stuff. You need to watch it. You need to watch it a few times. It's a fantastic film, and it really gets you behind these characters. So the nice thing they do with this, they'll show, Buzz Aldrin, and they'll show a few snapshots of his family or, a little bit of him and him as a child, which I thought was nice because, they go, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Oh, yeah. And so I constantly, even when we saw The First Man, I constantly think of The Right Stuff. It's such a pinnacle film. But so you it's showing you kind of a little, just the snapshots of who they are. But if you're from that era or if you've seen The Right Stuff, then you know who those are. So you're kind of like, oh, yeah, I know how that is. And you're able to move forward. And it's just really cool. The pictures on that, now they showed a lot on IMAX. That's why I didn't get to see it because I don't get it. I really tried. The last time I saw IMAX was the Godzilla movie, not the one before. And I wasn't impressed. But I did get to meet LaMarcus Aldridge after that, and that was awesome. Hi, Kara. So this one looks amazing. The footage just looks like it was shot yesterday, except for everyone's wearing big, bulky black glasses. And
you just stepped out of the movie.
I just stepped out. Literally, just stepped out of the movie. Pretty much just what I'm wearing here. So it's really fascinating. They've just had this film sitting around. A guy was making a documentary. They reached out to him. They kind of touched back and forth and said, "Oh, hey, by the way, we've got this."
Yeah, you want to put it together.
That's
crazy. He pulls it from some other things, and of course they had the little drawings they do that show like the orbit that that the rocket ship has to go around and things. That stuff they did for the movie, and I kind of helped because I was like, oh, that's how they did it. That's how they went. They used the gravitational pull to, So for like people like me that don't get science so much, it was helpful.
Really, from all the movies we've seen, you don't know how that works?
Yeah, it's just still you forget.
Seriously?
I try to.
You have to have James Cameron explain to you at the beginning how the Titanic sank, so that when it happens, you go, oh yeah.
Usually in those movies you follow the story, and in this case, or the characters, like something like First Man, you don't get as wrapped up in the technical things because you're into the character. So this one, it's all, there's no really characters, it's all the actual space mission. So if you're really into space stuff, I would definitely recommend this. If you don't like space stuff, you're really not going to like this movie. I'm kind of half and half on it. I thought it was fascinating. I thought the visuals were great. I'm not a big space buff, so I did find myself, even though it's only 80 minutes long, getting a little bored in parts, going, okay, I kind of know how this is ending, so let's wrap it up here. A little bit of that. Like, I think I know what's going to happen. I think he's going to get to the moon and they're going to get back because I know how that works. So not so much suspense.
I can make the Apollo.
They even try to get the music like kind of suspenseful, and I'm like, no, not so much.
I pretty much figured that out.
Know how this is going out. That's how many stars you giving it?
Yeah, I gave it 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to move on to a segment we haven't done in quite some time, Streaming 6. So we're going to talk about 6 movies, even though I tried to submit 5 this week, for films that are actually available on streaming services, because that's what we're constantly being asked. What's good out there? What's on this one? What's on that one? What's here? And so I ended up watching a couple of movies back to back recently that were streaming that had to deal with boats that were sinking. And so I thought, well, let's see if there's 4 other ones. And I found 3 others, and then we had to shoehorn another one in, so that's fine. So the first movie I want to talk about was probably
you could have done Titanic. Actually.
I could have done, but it's not well, it wasn't streaming at the time. Okay. So you can pay for it. But the second favorite film I saw last year that wasn't an actual release from last year was History Is Made at Night from 1937, which we absolutely love. And if I could just make the world do one thing, a few other things, but the 13th on that list would be to watch this movie because I absolutely love this movie. I just rewatched it again, and I just absolutely love it. And to try to explain what the movie is about is so convoluted and weird.
Sort of like the name of the movie.
Yeah.
History is Made at Night is a terrible title in a way.
Terrible.
The movie, it makes it sound really, it's actually a romance, but it's about a ship, and it's got a little drama, and there's a wonderful dance sequence, and it's beautiful and romantic and lush, and it's everything the old movies that you associate with great old movies, and that title does not, I don't know, do it justice at all.
And if you like Speed, where they're the 3 stories pushed into one, it's kind of like that, but without Keanu Reeves in a bus.
Yeah, 1937.
1937.
So, yeah. Yes, and it is available.
It is available, yep.
Oh.
Do you want to talk about the next one?
Oh, well, I guess so. I didn't know I was introducing any. This is your segment.
Oh, I can do it.
African Queen was your next pick from 1951, of course. Probably most of you have seen African Queen. If you haven't, you should. It's Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, and they are indeed on a boat in Africa. And this one also has a bit of a romance. And Katharine Hepburn, this is sort of, I can't remember if this is like the start of when she started to get kind of saddled with these like spinstery type roles. But, you know, he's the curmudgeonly.
Right there, yeah.
They're both playing kind of their typical archetypes. You know, he's playing the rough and tumble, curmudgeonly, you know, kind of sexist guy. And she's playing the harpy spinster who's uptight. And then, of course, then they come together and find love on the boat.
And fight Nazis.
And fight Nazis. I forgot about that. That's an important part.
The next one is A Night to Remember. This is actually the second one of the ones I'd watched where it tells the story of the Titanic. That's why I didn't choose the Titanic, because this actually is the Titanic story. And this is from 1958. It's an English film, so it's extremely British. So when you saw Titanic and you watch people going, oh no, I don't want to go out there, it's cold. This one takes it even up a notch. Oh, these life vests are very uncomfortable and not very fashionable. I don't wish to wear one. And so the entire time...
No one would be saying that, by the way, while the ship is singing. They'd be saying, hell, get that life vest on me so I can get in the water.
The entire time I'm watching this movie, I'm yelling at the screen. Just like, oh. And I know how I'd act on the boat. I'm like, these people are having, oh no, I don't want to leave you behind. No, dear, I love you too much. We've been together all of our lives. It's okay. And I would push the past them, like, I'm getting on the boat. I'm sorry. Women and children first, and people with common sense. Move. Oh my God. Very, very
so
frustrating.
British. Would you like some tea before you get on the lifeboat?
But when you talked about the special effects that were certainly in Titanic, this one had really great special effects. I was really impressed with how good it looked. It's a black and white film. It's really wonderul. I
actually
highly
never
recommend
seen this movie.
It's so good.
So I guess I will have to now.
Yeah, even though you know the ending.
Is this one on? Oh, I guess we can't say. We're not allowed
it's
to
on
say.
the CC.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, and I don't know if I've ever seen the next one. I think I have. But
you want me to talk about the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one's from 1972, and all you KATU kids out there will know what I'm talking about. That's raised in Oregon here, watching Channel 12. Kara, Victoria, Scott, and Brian. The Poseidon Adventure from 1972. It's one of the films that terrifies me because of the water, Jaws, in this one. Because when this boat, a cruise liner, is hit by a giant wave, it turns upside down. There was a horrible remake. Wolfgang Peterson actually did it, and it was the last film he made.
Is that the last one? Oh, it's been a while. That really
this one's pretty
sank
cheesy.
His career. Get it? Sank his career.
This one's pretty cheesy. It's got Shelley Winters, who I absolutely adore. Gene Hackman doing the best he can to carry a big, huge film. Ernest Borgnine, because every movie has Ernest Borgnine when there's a bunch of people in it, and he's fantastic in it. So it's turned over, and they're trying to climb up to the bottom of the ship to get out. But when the ship is turned over, I just remember a guy flying from the floor all the way up to the ceiling and hitting the stained glass and watching all these things fall into people and all these people dying, all this fire coming out. And Channel 12 just showed that stuff, and it really terrified me. It is such a cool movie. I can't recommend it.
I don't think I've ever seen it, but I think it wasn't this the period in the 70s that kind of started these kind of like disaster movies,
Earthquake,
like
then
Towering
Inferno. Yeah, all of those came after that. Airport,
and they're still making them today. Now we've got a new one coming out about a hurricane or something.
No,
that's a horror movie.
Geostorm was last year.
No, there's another one coming though out. Oh, I think it's a horror movie with a hurricane.
Something like that.
And then Perfect Storm.
Oh, a movie Angela loved.
I did not
This was from 2000. That's Wolfgang Peterson, and that actually tells the story of the true story of a fishing boat that had gone out and got caught into a perfect storm. It starred Mark Wahlberg when he was George Clooney's sidekick. They have fantastic chemistry. You get to see the astronaut wives, or the wives left behind at home that are staring out longingly at the ocean, waiting for the boys to come back.
Always my favorite kind of movie where the only female roles are the ones that get to look out at the ocean. Oh.
They were smart. They're on shore.
You liked this movie. I don't remember if we reviewed this on the show because it was 2000. We did?
Maybe not.
No, I don't think so. We haven't been around that long.
I own it.
Yeah, I didn't care for it, so.
It's got a big wave in it.
And
It
I know
looks
this
really
next
good.
one we're going to talk about is also one of your favorites, and I might even have this on your top 10 list that year. No, but you really liked it, and I didn't.
All is Lost? You didn't like this movie from 2013 with Robert Redford?
We reviewed it.
Yeah, but I don't remember you not liking it.
I remember just being kind of bored. I mean, after he gets on his yacht, it's like, oh, poor guy has a yacht, has to...
Oh, here we go. Again, it's going to be about class. No, it's about a man trying to survive, a person trying to survive on a ship that was sinking.
You could have had Life of Pi on there. That's an actually good movie.
No, that's not a shipwreck. Oh, I guess that was a shipwreck in it. Oh, okay, well, you can throw that in there. Now, streaming 7, Angela's just thrown the whole show. That's it. Now it's all terrible and horrible.
But All Is Lost, a lot of people didn't see that Redford movie, so...
Yeah, so that's why you'd pick it for streaming 6 to check this movie out, because if you like those other films, this would be a good one to put together.
You don't like the water, so it's very interesting that you picked a theme of people getting capsized and drowning and all sorts of horrible things happening to them in the water.
Don't you watch horror films that freak you out?
Yeah, that's true, but I don't try to watch 6 of them in a row.
I just thought it was kind of interesting. I thought, well, there's a fun. I'll just look up here, sinking ships. You Google search it, a bunch of movies show up, and I went, oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And I tried to pick Deadcom, and you're like, that happens on the water. That takes place on the water, but it's not about the water. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, Life is Pi. Yeah, Life is Pi.
Life of Pi would have been good.
Life of Pi would have been a really good
one.
one.
Well, I thought of that just because
we
saw Ang Lee's got another movie coming out. Please let it be good.
Oh, God, with Will Smith. Oh, God, a Jerry Bruckheimer movie.
I know. It's like, it's got a 50-50 maybe chance.
Sticky ships. Okay. So, golly. Well, we both recommended Rocketman. Angela liked it more than I did. We both cannot recommend Godzilla. I really teeter on that 2-star review I just gave it. I liked Going Down the Road. You not so much. And we both can recommend Apollo 11, even if you haven't seen 1 through 10. And then, of course, we had the streaming 6. That's a terrible dad joke. So, of course, you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. You can check out our website at realfilmsnobs.com and submit a viewer's pick. You can listen to us on KMUZ. You can watch us on CCTV out in Silverton and Corvallis. You can check out our amazing sponsors. We want to thank our hardworking crew, who we absolutely adore and couldn't do this without. I want to thank my wonderful co-host, and I want to thank you for watching The Viewer. Have a great day and great movies.
That's how you do it.
Have a classic day with classic.